Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. During the 8th weekend of 2025 that ended on February 23rd, one new movie made it into this weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office. And their cumulative total earnings for the weekend fell considerably by 55.05% to $57.8 million, as compared with last weekend's adjusted cumulative total of $128.6 million. So the top 5 cumulative domestic box office total once again fell below $100 million, but it did manage to stay above $50 million. Thus, it wasn't as good a weekend for domestic movie theaters overall. But before proceeding, if you're enjoying this video, please consider pressing the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my content, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. And I want to convey my deepest thanks and appreciation to everyone who has subscribed. This weekend's top 5 movies at the domestic box office included the following. Clinging to number 1 was Disney's and Marvel Studios' newest MCU movie entitled Captain America: Brave New World, starring Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford. Opening at number 2 was Automatic's low-budget horror movie entitled The Monkey, which is based on a story written by horror writer Stephen King. Falling to number 3 was Studio Canal's Heyday Films, Columbia Pictures, Stage 6 Films, and 3 other studios' 2024 foreign animated and live-action family adventure movie entitled Paddington in Peru. Clinging to number 4 was DreamWorks Animation's family movie entitled Dog Man. And clinging to number 5 was CMC Pictures' foreign Chinese digitally animated movie entitled Neja 2. Captain America: Brave New World earned another $28.2 million during the weekend and $24.2 million during the week domestically, $55.8 million internationally, and $108.2 million globally, to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $141.2 million, $148.2 million, and $289.4 million, respectively. The movie did earn more during the President's Day holiday on Monday the 17th, but not a significant amount. But the movie's 68.26% decline in domestic box office earnings during its second weekend as compared with its opening weekend domestic earnings is ranked number 33 out of the MCU's 35 movies, making it the third worst movie in the history of the MCU for second weekend drop in domestic box office. In other words, there are only 2 other MCU movies that had larger second weekend domestic box office declines than Captain America: Brave New World. And they were the 69.65% second weekend decline that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania had in 2023, and the 78.05% second weekend decline that The Marvels experienced also in 2023, which is the worst for any MCU movie. Again, this isn't promising for this movie's box office prospects. The Monkey opened in the US by earning $14.2 million domestically, but it hasn't yet earned anything internationally. Paddington in Peru earned another $6.5 million domestically, $9.2 million internationally, and $21.5 million globally, to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $25.3 million, $125 million, and $150.3 million, respectively. Dogman earned another $5.9 million domestically, $8.6 million internationally, and $20.5 million globally, to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $78.8 million, $26.2 million, and $105 million, respectively. The Chinese movie Neja 2 earned another $3 million domestically, $779.7 million internationally, and $787.2 million globally, to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $14.8 million, $1,826.3 million, and $1,841.1 million, respectively. So it's clearly a very popular movie in China, and it's currently the highest grossing movie worldwide for 2025, and the first movie to break $1 billion globally for the year. I'd love to know in the comments below whether you watched any of these 5 movies this weekend and what you thought about them if you did, or whether you weren't interested in seeing any of them. So even though this is 2025, we're continuing to deal with the 3 highest grossing movies domestically for 2024. And those 3 movies remained Disney Pixar's animated movie Inside Out 2, Disney and Marvel Studios MCU movie Deadpool and Wolverine, and Universal's Wicked, with domestic box office earnings of $653 million, $636.7 million, and $472.8 million, respectively. So Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine remain the only 2 movies so far for 2024 that have broken $600 million domestically, and Deadpool and Wolverine became the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time domestically. And globally, the 3 highest grossing movies for 2024 remained Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Moana 2, with earnings of $1,698.9 million, $1,338.1 million, and $1,050.7 million, respectively. Thus, Moana 2 is only the 3rd movie so far for 2024 to break $1 billion worldwide, after Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. Inside Out 2 outperformed last year's highest grossing movie worldwide, Barbie, by $251.3 million, and Deadpool and Wolverine became both the highest grossing R-rated movie worldwide of all time and the MCU's 6th highest grossing movie worldwide of all time. The reported production budgets for Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Moana 2 are $200 million, $250 million, and $150 million, respectively. And to estimate what their break-even point ranges might be, I'll multiply each movie's production budget by 2.5 and 3.0 respectively to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, as well as the additional costs of marketing the movie and other miscellaneous costs that the studio pays above and beyond the production budget. And when I do that, we get the following estimated break-even point ranges. For Inside Out 2, we get an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. For Deadpool and Wolverine, it's from $625 million to $750 million. And for Moana 2, it's from $375 million to $450 million. Thus, all 3 of these movies have made bank. That brings us to several other movies that I am continuing to track but are no longer in or never were in the top 5, and they include the following. Falling to number 7 was Walt Disney Pictures' animated prequel entitled Mufasa the Lion King. Falling to number 15 was Walt Disney Animation Studios' sequel entitled Moana 2. Falling to number 17 was Paramount Pictures' Sega Sammy Group's original films Marza Animation Planets and Blur Studios' animated three-quel entitled Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And falling to number 20 was Universal Pictures and Marc Platt Productions' musical fantasy entitled Wicked, starring Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, and Michelle Yeoh. Mufasa the Lion King earned another $2.5 million domestically, $7.8 million internationally, and $12.3 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $245.4 million, $453.3 million, and $698.7 million, respectively. Moana 2 earned another $522,000 during the weekend and $568,000 during the week domestically, $5.3 million internationally, and $6.3 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $458.8 million, $592 million, and $1,050.7 million, respectively. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 earned another $355,000 during the weekend and $467,000 during the week domestically, $4.2 million internationally, and $5 million globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $235.3 million, $248 million, and $483.3 million, respectively. Domestically, Wicked earned another $211,000 domestically, no money internationally, and $378,000 globally to bring its current domestic, international, and global gross box office totals up to $472.8 million, $254.3 million, and $727.1 million, respectively. Now, to know whether these movies are going to break even or not, as well as how much money they might be losing, we need to estimate their break-even points. When a movie's marketing budget is known, we can add it to the movie's production budget and then multiply the sum by 2. Otherwise, we can multiply the production budget by 2.5 for a single mid-range estimated break-even point, or by both 2.5 and 3.0 for a broader estimated break-even point range. Both methods account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves. For Captain America Brave New World, with its production budget of around $362.5 million, as reported by World of Real, and not the $180 million that Disney has clearly falsely reported because they don't want their shareholders knowing how much the movie is losing, that yields an estimated break-even point range of around $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million. For Mufasa the Lion King, with its production budget of $200 million, as reported by multiple sources, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $500 million to $600 million. For Sonic the Hedgehog 3, with its production budget of around $122 million, as reported by the New York Times, that yields an estimated break-even point range of $305 million to $366 million. For Wicked, with its reported production budget of $150 million, that yields a break-even point range of $375 million to $450 million. So in this video, I am no longer projecting or never have projected what the final domestic or global gross box office earnings might be for the movies Mufasa the Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Moana 2, or Wicked, because their expected future earnings are either currently too small, possibly non-existent, or going unreported, or their projected earnings aren't much higher than their current earnings. And each of these movies has already made bank. And that now brings us to the movies whose final domestic and global gross box office revenues I am currently projecting, which includes Captain America Brave New World. For Captain America Brave New World, using a range of possible average weekly drops from 31.64% to 44.46%, which are plus and minus one standard deviation away from the overall MCU average weekly drop of 38.05%, I can project that the final domestic box office earnings for the movie may range from $206.6 million at the low end, $226.4 million at the mid-range, and $254.1 million at the upper end, which is more narrow than last week's projection. Then by using the movie's current domestic share of 48.79%, which is lower than last week, I can project that the final global gross box office earnings for the movie may range from $423.5 million at the low end, $464.1 million at the mid-range, and $520.7 million at the upper end, which is more narrow than last week's projection. So with the movie's estimated break-even point range of $906.3 million to $1,087.5 million, Captain America Brave New World currently stands to lose somewhere on the order of $385.5 million to $664 million in global gross box office revenue, which, when divided by 2 to account for the 50% of gross box office ticket sales that movie theaters keep for themselves, means that Disney and Marvel Studios currently stand to lose around $192.8 million to $332 million. So that effectively makes Captain America Brave New World the biggest flop for 2025 so far this year, unless you truly want to believe Disney's heavily underreported and unrealistic production budget of $180 million, which is hardly believable given how dependent the movie is on CGI and all of the reshoots that were done. So to recap, Captain America Brave New World is currently a flop, but Mufasa the Lion King, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, Inside Out 2, Moana 2, and Wicked have all made bank. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought of this video and whether you have or are planning to see any of the movies that I talked about. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.